Evening, everybody, and welcome. How's everybody doing tonight? All right, this is a great turnout. My name is Ted Wheeler. I am lucky enough to be the mayor of this fantastic city, and I just want to set the tone for this evening's conversation. The Broadway Corridor is a transformative opportunity for the city of Portland. This is a really rare opportunity to define a neighborhood from scratch in the central city. You're all here tonight for one reason. You're here because you care about the city of Portland. And you took the time out of your busy schedules to be here so that you could both listen and so you could share. This is what I think sets Portland apart and which makes me feel so fortunate to be the mayor of this city, is that people have an interest in what's going on. They take an active role, a participatory role in the community. And we have this opportunity today to work together to help shape the vision for the future of this city. And that is a vision that we all have an opportunity to share in. As you know, there has been a lot of talk about the potential opportunity around the 32 acres in the Broadway Corridor. And there's been lots of different visions that have been offered up. It could be an employment center. It could be dense residential housing. It could be an opportunity for transit and active transportation. It could be a world-class showcase of Portland's commitment to sustainability and green building, or a connection binding the East and the West together all the way from the Rose Corridor through Old Town Chinatown and into the Pearl District. But most of all, I think one of the greatest opportunities, one of the most important parts that we're trying to envision around the Broadway Corridor is to create an intentional opportunity to reduce racial and social disparities and extend the benefit to communities all throughout the city of Portland. I firmly believe that the Broadway Corridor really is one of the rarest of development opportunities. It's a once-in-a-multi-generational opportunity because it can be all of those things and it can be much more. I envision the Broadway Corridor as being a vibrant, livable, accessible, inclusive, and cohesive part of our community. I've said this many times and I'll say it again tonight. As we think about the future of the Broadway Corridor, let's be bold. Let's think big. Let's do something together that is extraordinary, that future generations will look to and say, those guys back then and those women back then, they got it right. And ladies and gentlemen, we have some young people here today. I hope you've looked around and you've seen some young kids. I was just introduced to the 4th graders at Fabian Elementary, right up here in the front. And I know we have other kids. When you're my age, which is a long, long, long time from now, this is really going to be about you. And this will be about the community that you inherit from the rest of us here. And so I'm delighted that you're here because your voice matters, because this is really a conversation about the city that we are building for you and for future generations. So kids, thank you for being here, and parents, thank you for including them as an integral part of tonight's conversation. This process is critical to our success, and it's important that we do this in our usual Portland way with lots of inclusion and lots of conversations and a lot of transparency and public involvement. This is a community-led vision, and that's why we're here. So we're here to rely on your opinions, your viewpoints, your expertise, your opinions, your own personal approach to this grand vision for the Broadway Corridor. And we want to make sure that we find the right project that transcends social barriers and honors our commitment to green building and creates accessible public spaces and delivers affordable housing and supports small businesses and creates jobs and demonstrates equity that other cities and communities around the country and around the world will aspire to achieve. We're here tonight to listen to 3 firms that are eager to join with all of us here. And we're going to have the opportunity to hear their ideas, their visions, their credentials, and we're going to have the opportunity to also ask them questions and learn more about their experiences and about their skill sets. I am extremely optimistic about the opportunity that's before us to learn what you think, what the community thinks should happen through this redevelopment process. So thank you again for being here. It is now my pleasure to turn this over to Tori Campbell, who's going to be the MC for tonight's events. Tori, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, that was all right. I tend to do best when there's like a good response from the community. Good afternoon, everyone. Woo, there we go. So it's my job to keep things moving, not to be terribly memorable, and make this really to be what it's about, which is a chance for you as an individual, for you as community members, and for us as a city to really hear about a really unique opportunity of a piece of property that has so much potential, has a lot of complexity, and really requires your expressed input and engagement both today and moving forward. So we are here tonight to learn more about the Broadway Corridor, and this is our Developer Candidate Public Forum. And that, again, it's my honor to be able to stand in this place as your MC. My day job is I lead an amazing team of individuals who work with entrepreneurs throughout the city, as well as community economic development at Prosper Portland, really trying to close wealth disparities and create environments for small businesses to grow and thrive, as well as vibrant communities throughout the city that we all call home. And so with that being said, I want to kind of set the table for this evening. Many of you have already gotten some food. I heard it was delicious. I didn't see any spaghetti, but that's okay. I did see some good cookies there. A couple housekeeping items. One, many of you are probably going to be using your cell phone tonight. We have some technology we're going to try to incorporate into this evening. Just want to ask that you please turn off the ringers. We also are live casting this on YouTube, so keep that in mind in terms of the movement and the volume that you can create. This is a really unique opportunity for all of us to be present both in the room, but also in the city and potentially all around the country and the world, if it is that relevant and popular, and I think in some ways it is. But please feel free, continue to get up as you need to grab food. We also have restrooms that are located here in the back. There are also some that are upstairs in the lofted area. Also, I want to remind you that you should have on your chairs and your tables, you should see a program. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, that's going to be really useful this evening. So just hold on to that and grab one if you haven't. And last, as I did mention, this is being live streamed on YouTube. Also, volunteers are wearing orange lanyards throughout the space, and they will come in handy soon for some of us, but it's just important for all of us to know that if you have questions or you need a little assistance, by all means, get their attention, and they'll be willing to come over and provide any answers to questions you may have. This is really an exciting program, as already been mentioned, really a chance for all of us to hear 3 developers, as well as not just hear from them, but also to hear from you. As you know, your role, it cannot be overstated enough. It is vitally important, as we intend for this to be a community-led vision. And tonight is the attempt of that to being an additional, another layer of a demonstration of what it means to have community-led, community-involved. These 3 developers have gone through a first round of vetting and with an evaluation committee. Tonight after the forum, actually they will share tonight in front of all of us, and then tomorrow these teams will spend some time in interviews with another evaluation committee. A couple things to note in terms of expectations of today's program. The developers, as we bring them up, and we have 3 of them, they're going to come up in random order. They will all have 30 minutes total, 15 minutes to present what it is they propose for the space, and then we'll have 15 minutes of questions and answer. And that's my hope. I was trying to say, can we have like some Oscar music in the back in the event that they go beyond that 15 minutes, and they said we can't. So I just want to encourage them, as my grandpa said, take your time, but make it quick. And we really want to get to the Q&A part, which is a chance for you, once you hear some of their vision for this space, to begin to vibe back and forth. And we'll see how far we can get in 15 minutes. And then at the conclusion of that, we will allow for, after each presenter does some Q&A, we'll have a closing moment for some polling. And I'll tell you a little bit more about this thing we call polling and how that plays a role tonight. And we'll repeat that until we get through all of the presenters for this evening. And then we'll conclude with a final polling question for the evening for all of us to weigh in on. Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay. So to help prepare you, there's a couple things I want to do. The first, I want to talk with you about this technology that we're going to use. It's called Slido. It's a website called Slido, www.slide.do. Phonetically, it's smooth. And when you go to that website, and you can click the hashtag Broadway. This is a way for you to get your opinion heard. So we're trying to utilize technology to see if it allows and promotes more efficient ways to get your information up to the front. Even within the technology, it allows for individuals to write a question for you to see it. Maybe you're not even sitting next to them. And if you like it, you hit it, it continues to bump that up in terms of a level of priority. So if someone already answers a question that you would have wanted to have asked, just hit the like button. And that's a great way for us to have a better sense of what are the most relevant questions for this evening with each presenter. Also, we can always go back to the old school, and there's no shame in that at all. If you're like, Tori, I don't do that Slido, I don't know what that is, but I do write on a piece of paper. You can ask one of our volunteers. We can provide you with a green piece of paper. You can jot down your question. Our volunteers with the orange lanyards on will collect them, and we'll bring them up. And during the Q&A portion, we will try to go ahead and quickly synthesize some of the relevant themes that are showing up and incorporate that into our Q&A. But let's go ahead and take a little bit of a slower process through this thing we call Slido. We're hoping that this actually creates a really good platform and using technology to help the conversation move forward. So you'd first go to the website, www.slido.com. Then you will enter in hashtag Broadway. Upon hitting that, then you will go to the number 1, which is welcome and demographics questions. Once you get to that portion, you will tap on polls in order to answer the polling questions that we will provide throughout the evening. You can also tap questions if you'd also like to ask a question, and you can do this anytime during the presentation. And honestly, because we won't have a ton of time to answer everyone's questions, it's just not practical. We encourage you to do it early and often, and also take advantage if someone else has already asked a question in the same way relatively that you would have wanted to ask that question. Go ahead and hit the like, and it helps to prioritize and make those really rise to the top. And then probably the only tricky part that I've been told in the use of this is navigating to the next poll. And simply to get to that next polling question, you'll just need to tap on the menu arrow. So a lot has been shared just in a brief moment of time. If you say, Tori, that made no sense to me, just give me a green piece of paper. That's great. If you say, I'd actually like to use this, but I do have a few questions, our volunteers around the orange lanyards will be more than willing to help you. But we hope this helps to facilitate good, meaningful conversation and dialogue for this evening. So, before we hear our first developer, we realize that as a city, we are diverse in so many ways, demographically. We come from different spaces. We have different interests with respects to the Broadway Corridor project. And so rather than us starting with an opportunity to hear developers, which we know they're the reason why we're here, it's also important to realize that the individuals around you love the city just as much as you do. And so we'd like to actually take maybe the next 4 minutes to do something that for some of you that are extroverts, you're like, yes, this is what I've been looking forward to. The introverts, you're going to die, but it's only for 3 minutes. So we can quickly come back to facing forward. On your program, on the back of your program, if you can pull that out, What I'm going to ask you to do is, for 4 minutes, is to get to know your neighbor. And what we've done is we have put on the back of the program 10 different images that evoke different emotions, different thoughts, different ways in which you might see the space that we are all thinking about today. I'd like you to take a look at the program, at the 10 images, and just in a few moments, I want you to turn to a neighbor, introduce yourself, and just take a brief moment to share which image best reflects why you are here. Are we ready? All right, go. I give you 3 minutes to do this. Take your time, get to know one another. Yeah. One more minute.
Will you show me what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good evening, everybody. Good evening. All right, we're going to come back together. Hey. All right. Thank you for sharing with each other and for sharing with us in just a few minutes. My name is Kimberly Branham. I'm Executive Director of Prosper Portland, and we're really excited that you're here today. And I do want to recognize all of the incredible staff work that's gone on into putting this event together. There's too many people to name, but I do want to particularly recognize June, who's over here, and Sarah Harple, who's over here. Let's give them a round of applause. So as Mayor Wheeler mentioned, this really is a rare transformative opportunity, and it's transformative on so many levels. I'm going to provide just some context so that as you are considering the remarks of each of the development teams, that you're coming from the same level of understanding and that you have a sense of the way that we at Prosper Portland are looking at this. So what we're talking about when we say Broadway Corridor is the area that you see in green here. So it includes the post office site, but it also includes Union Station, which we own, and it includes it includes Union Station, which I just said, and the Greyhound bus terminal, as well as a couple other publicly owned properties. I'd like to recognize Shannon Callahan, who's here on behalf of the Portland Housing Bureau. Prosper Portland owns this site along with the Portland Housing Bureau, so I'll talk a little bit about what that partnership looks like. So 4 million square feet of development is possible on this site, and by way of kind of comparison, that's like 3 Big Pinks and 1 Wells Fargo Center combined. So we're talking about a significant level of development. Some of the elements of the project are similar to how we've done development in the past. This includes the importance of the health of the real estate market and the finance market. Some of the things that we're doing are different, however. So driven by our commitment to ensuring equitable benefits from the project and to creating an inclusive, welcoming, opportunity-rich place, we've done some things differently. We started by applying a racial equity impact assessment in order to be mindful of how this project can be done differently and to address historical inequities. We convened a diverse steering committee. Many of the members are here with us today, really early on in the process, and they helped us to define what the goals and objectives of this project should be. And they began to frame up some of the major community benefits before we even had a development partner or really a vision for the site as we prepare for a community benefits agreement later on. So we're here today because of the results of a lot of really thoughtful processing with the steering committee and with our public partners. And the selected development partner will spend the next 18 to 24 months with us collaborating to create a development plan, which will include a number of additional opportunities for community input, and so we hope you will be back for those as well. Our charge is akin to selecting the right candidate for a job. So we're not here to determine the vision, we're here to select the right team. And what that means, and that job is to create a vision and then put together a team to deliver on that vision. While some proposers included potential team members, others indicated a desire to work with the steering committee and others to put that team together. And in order to make this hiring process apples to apples, we asked representatives from the master development firm to act as the chief spokesperson. So that's who you'll see up, and they'll be able to talk about their approach to partnership in that process. So following the adoption of the master plan by Design Commission, the selected development partner will have exclusive rights to Prosper Portland's portion of the post office. And will then help us deliver on that vision and the community benefits agreement. So I'd like to thank in particular the evaluation committee members who read through the very large proposals and came up with 3 very qualified candidates. Following tonight's forum and tomorrow morning's interviews, leadership from the Mayor's Office and the Portland Housing Bureau and I will provide a joint recommendation to our board, to the Prosper Portland Board, on May 9th for their approval. And because community benefits is at the forefront of that recommendation, we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say tonight. The qualifications that you see on this slide were key components of the evaluation process. And as I've thought about what I'm really looking for and what we're really looking for, it kind of comes down to 3 things. Do they have a proven experience completing projects at this scope and scale, delivering on the commitments that they've made, and building constructive relationships? There are certain things that we care deeply about as a community, and I want us to be able to work with a partner who will be side by side with us in making sure that all of that happens. The steering committee has been made up of the 40-plus individuals that you see here on this slide. They represent a lot of different voices and perspectives. We've been really honored to have them walk on this journey with us so far. So I'd like to introduce Vivian Satterfield, who is one of the co-chairs of the Broadway Corridor Steering Committee. She's Deputy Director at Opal Environmental Justice, Oregon, and she's going to share her perspective as well. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, how's it going? Excellent, I like that Tori got us all warmed up already. Hi, I am Vivian Satterfield. I'm fortunate enough to be the Deputy Director at Opal Environmental Justice Oregon. I am one of the 41 steering committee members who have been tasked with advising Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau on community-supported goals for this project. And I've heard this project be described in various scales. The one that I keep going back to is that this site, which the master developer will be responsible for, will fit 18 OMZs. Wow. So as a steering committee, we've spent a year developing the steering committee's charter, vision, and guiding principles to be the foundation from which we will inform the work in 2 subcommittees. And we've been working on urban development and then community benefits, which I help co-chair. So this is a serious volunteer commitment. I've been telling everyone that my day job is at Opal and then I'm moonlighting at the steering committee for Prosper Portland because we've invested at least 3 hours each month on steering committee meetings on top of subcommittee work preparation, and this commitment will last through this calendar year. So these are the folks who've been investing a whole bunch of time in that. So please give them a round of applause because these are the folks who are doing so much work. So I think Prosper Portland's been really thoughtful in thinking about how to bring together such a large group to activate really the diversity and strength in our individual areas of expertise. And the framing of our task to advise these decision makers on such an impactful project for our city is in an anti-racist framework. And at Opal, as an environmental justice advocate, really working to win real equity and real benefits in our communities, this is a catalyzing moment for Portland's growing communities of color, immigrants and refugees, and low-income people. So I'm proud to be a represented member of the Healthy Communities Coalition. We're a coalition of over 20 organizations, including Portland's communities of color, environmental and environmental justice advocates, small businesses, transportation advocates, and organized workers in the construction, public service, and service sectors. And so for the last 2 years, we've been working with Prosper Portland and our members to ensure that the Broadway Corridor project can reach the goal of maximizing community benefit through a legally binding, negotiated, and community-supported community benefits agreement. And this is important, especially at this point in time, because despite Portland's booming growth, we have serious inequality. We're in the middle of a statewide housing crisis and numerous transportation challenges. And so far, a lot of new development has actually exacerbated these issues rather than solving them. So acquisition and redevelopment of this site offers truly a once-in-a-generation opportunity for Prosper Portland and the city of Portland to meet its goals for inclusive prosperity. So we believe that the city of Portland can achieve much higher returns on its investments by ensuring that growth produces family-sustaining jobs, increased investments in the most disenfranchised communities, and more opportunities for women and people of color to lead in our economy through a community benefits agreement. The steering committee truly has been leading with equity in the planning process, and as I look out into the crowd here, I see a lot of familiar faces of leaders in our community who are committed to addressing the inequities that for too long have dismissed the talents of our communities. So I see you, I am here with you, and we're gonna get in on the ground floor of this project, this amazing opportunity tonight, together, to interrupt the status quo and to lead towards real equitable outcomes. I can't wait to hear for the presentation. Thank you so much.
All right. So at this time, I'm going to announce the order of the developer team presentations. And before I do that, I want to once again remind you that the intent of tonight is to allow for a meaningful dialogue within reason, meaning that we have time constraints. So we're trying to utilize technology, which is the Slido app, as well as just kind of the old-fashioned, if you have a question, write it down, raise it, and one of our volunteers will get it get it from you and bring it up and try to synthesize these questions. Keep in mind, we won't be able to get to every question, so get them in early. And also remember that on the Slido app, if there's a question that has already been asked that you really feel like that resonates with me, if you hit the like thumb, that'll keep it populating and it'll keep it rising to the top. So without further ado, this is going to be the order of tonight, again, randomly chosen. We will first hear from Team Mikuni, then we will hear from Team Related, and then we will conclude with Team Continuum. They will all be given 30 minutes, of which 15 minutes will be hearing from them in their presentation, and then we will take the remaining 15 minutes to do Q&A that I'll facilitate, receiving questions from you, the audience. And then at the conclusion of all of the presenters, I'll have them all come back up and give one final 2-minute kind of closing remarks, and then we'll conclude with one final polling question. So that's the intent over the next few moments that we have together. So I would like to ask our first developer team to please make their way to the stage. Can you please welcome representatives from Team Mikuni?
Good evening. My name is Chad Mikuni, and I'm CEO of Mikuni. And on behalf of our team, excited to be here tonight. I just want to say, before I turn it over to Dan Cohen, our project executive, that we're here tonight to learn as much as we can. And so we've got a brief presentation put together, talks a little bit about our company, history, projects, et cetera. But the number one criteria that we have as a company is synergy, which is energy and alignment. And our goal is to really be part of a high-performing team. And so with that, I'm going to turn over to Dan Cohen and then look forward to getting into some Q&A. Thanks.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. So great to see all of you here, the passion and the interest of all of you here, and so many friendly faces. So I want to start just by saying thank you for having us. We're truly honored to be part of this process. So many people have said before what a significant and important opportunity this is, and we're just thrilled to be up here having the opportunity to start the conversation with you. As Chad said, we have some hopefully very brief comments to share. We want to touch on a little bit of who we are for those who don't know us, and talk about our values and a little bit about our vision for the place. But let me just start with probably the most obvious question that you may be asking yourselves about us. Why are we here? Why are we participating in this process? Why are we standing in front of you this evening? And it's a couple reasons. One, we're passionate about Portland and we're big believers in Portland. And since the time we started our first project here about 4 years ago on what ultimately became a hotel on land that we bought from Prosper Portland, we've made a long-term commitment to have a significant presence in Portland. Secondly, our company DNA, the company's was founded by Chad and his brother over 25 years ago, is really about public-private partnerships. This is what we do, and this is what we believe in. And lastly, and definitely most importantly, this land is a public asset, and it's here for public benefit. It's a public asset for public benefit. And we're here because we believe in that, and our company foundational principle is doing development in communities that welcome us and where we think we can have a long-term community impact. So just briefly, let me touch on the ideas and values we brought in starting to assemble our team and put forward our proposal. And we started about 3 years ago when we learned that there was real progress being made on the acquisition of the post office property. And we started having meetings in the community to get to know you all. We're obviously not based in Portland. We don't come to town thinking we understand the community anywhere as well as you all. And so we wanted to find community organizations and local partners who could educate us. And some of them, we're pleased to say, are on our team today. So the three primary commitments and values that we have as part of our proposal is to be a great partner, to deliver a great place, and to deliver great prosperity. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but you can see some of the ideas behind that. So just a bit about who our team is. The team that we're proposing work with you all, the steering committee here and the community more broadly. Mikuni will be the master developer, and you'll hear a little bit more from Chad about who we are as a company. And then we have a core development team that touches on a few of the most critical aspects. So Andre Ba is here with us from Group AGB, an amazing person, a wonderful supporter of our efforts, and we made an early commitment that we wanted to make sure that equity was inculcated throughout every aspect of our project, and we wanted an equity manager to do that, and I can't imagine a better person than having Andre as part of our team. Sage Hospitality, which is a sister organization, also based in Denver, but with a significant presence in Portland. They're the developer and operator of the Nines and our partner in the AC Marriott Hotel downtown. Departure and a number of other restaurants. Urban Farmer are theirs, and they, particularly led by Chef Gregory Gourdet, who many of you may know, are part of our team and are going to help us make sure, again, we achieve that local flavor. Hockey Development was maybe a name new to many of you, but the two principals are folks that I'm sure are well known. Bill Hart, who's here with us, thank you, and Tom Kemper, his partner, together have developed combined have developed over 10,000 units of affordable housing, and Bill has had a significant presence in the design community, particularly on affordable housing. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Bruce Wood, who's a very well-established developer in town for decades, who ultimately, standing way at the back there, Bruce, who ultimately went on to work at Prosper Portland and was very instrumental in the acquisition of the post office property. We're thrilled to have him as well. Now, ultimately, the group of people it's going to take to be successful here, to get this right, to achieve our goals on place, partnership, and prosperity, it's a big tent. And it's going to take many, if not most of you in this room who want to support us. But we've tried to demonstrate that we're serious about this community and build those relationships early. And so this is our start. And so there are groups here like Beam Development and the Malzen family. Jonathan's here. Cody Goldberg from Harper's Playground, and other consultants who are well established with doing work in the Central City, in Portland, who can provide their expertise to support us. And similarly, community organizations. How do we make sure that what we're doing is achieving the goals of long-standing community organizations that are already focused on these missions of equity and affordability and issues such as that? And so we reached out, and we were pleased to get the support of a number of groups like Hacienda CDC, Boys and Girls Club, and others. And we're certainly thrilled also that James Beard Public Market and TEDx Portland, we're excited about what we're doing and want to be part of it as well if the community is supportive of that. Together as a group, substantial experience developing in the Central City. So with that, Chad's going to just tell you a bit about who we are as a company.
Sure. So our company was founded in 1991. My brother and I actually, believe it or not, in junior high started selling strawberries together on the street corner near Knott's Berry Farm in Disneyland, and grew that business up to 1991. We decided to start a real estate investment company, and read an article in Time magazine called Boom Time in the Rockies, and moved to Colorado, and that was about 27 years ago. We've been business partners ever since. We've developed about 8 million square feet of commercial properties, primarily throughout the western U.S., based in Denver. And we have a real passion for placemaking, and also a real passion for working with high-performing teams and owning a lot of our real estate for the long term. I think about 75% of all the real estate that we've developed, we still own today, and we often say that our favorite holding period is forever. And when it comes to creating place, how you design it and build it is one thing, but also your capital structure and how you operate it, in my opinion, is equally as important.
Great. Thanks so much. And you can see some images of work that our company and our team have done over many years. So I'm sure every single one of you in this room has, for a long time, put a lot of thought and spent a lot of time talking about what this place can be. We've already heard some some prominent members of your community talk about that. So we want to just sort of go on a little journey with you briefly and think about, imagine together what this place could be. So imagine a process, which you're clearly already part of and has started long before we got here, that includes a broad spectrum of the community actively engaged with a committed developer who is devoted to total transparency and accountability. I'm talking serious transparency and accountability. That means establishing metrics and processes to give you all the confidence that the commitments that we make are commitments we're going to stand by. And we certainly have had that experience in the past, and Chad will speak to it, about our partners that we've worked with in the past are our best spokespeople. I wish we could have them up here with us today to tell you what it's like to work with us as partners. Imagine a young family with small kids that have jobs in Central City but live in East Portland because they can't find an affordable place to live, and that this neighborhood provides them the first opportunity to live in the Central City, to have a home that's beautiful, that's surrounded by wonderful amenities like grocery stores and places to eat, beautiful parks and public spaces in a neighborhood that's safe and healthy. Imagine a process and a place that's totally inclusive and accessible. And by inclusive, I'm referring to being welcoming to all. So it's one thing to say, well, of course, anyone can come here. It's another to create a place that is truly welcoming to all and that is compelling and attractive to all walks of life, from a geographic standpoint, economics, culture, age. We want to build a place that people want to come to and feel comfortable and at home at, whether they live there or work there. And with the help of groups like Harper's Playground, we want to make sure that all the public spaces that we create are places where people want to hang out and linger. And whether they get there by foot or on wheels, as many cases for young children, that anyone can come and enjoy the space equally. I don't need to tell you about equity, but I want to reiterate some of the things that you already know and assign or communicate our value about making sure this is a place and a process that's equitable. What does equity mean? Well, there are already established goals on hiring and other elements. Those are the baseline. The way we think about it is using equity as a lens or a filter through which every aspect of the project, whether it's assembling the team that's here today on our behalf, the professional services team, the contractors who are involved, the people who are working in the buildings that are ultimately developed and operating, the leasing, the affordable commercial space for tenants who might otherwise not have access to that kind of space. Holistic, true equity. Jobs are obviously central to this, and we want to make sure that there are jobs, particularly for people who in the past have not had those kinds of opportunities. And again, at its core are construction jobs, but then jobs throughout the operation of the life of the project. And since we're going to be here for the life of the project, we're able to make that kind of commitment. At our one project in Portland today, 59% of the employees who work there are people of color, and over 50% are women, and we were able to achieve that in part with the help of a great organization like IRCO. Food's integral to the culture in Portland. We're going to enhance and accentuate that. We're hopeful, if the community is supportive, that the James Beard Public Market could be an important piece of that, and with the help of organizations like Boys and Girls Club and Urban Gleaners and the YMCA, we can use this project as a foundation for education, for healthy nutrition, and for combating hunger, especially in children. Art and culture, the way you make a vibrant, dynamic place is ensure it's infused with art and culture. One of our projects in Denver has 715 individual works of art, all by local artists. We want to do the same here, and with if the community is supportive of it, TEDx Portland is excited to be part of it and help bring that kind of dynamic place. Placemaking and design, the bottom line for us is really twofold. One, like we've done at Denver Union Station should be an integral part of this place. And two, the place should feel Portland, and like a place, not a project. So it should be contextual. The project should be financially sustainable, meaning we pay back, we help Prosper Portland pay back the city its $40 million line of credit and ensure that there's a return on investment to support community benefit. Obviously, environmental sustainability is essential, and we want to achieve net positive energy and water where possible, and push the limits so it's a model project for the city and the nation. And then we're going to be your partners long term, and so partnership is essential. It starts with listening, and so we want to end with listening and tell you it's our top priority, and once selected, that's what we're going to do a lot of. And anyone who wants to meet with me or a member of our team will be available to do just that, and we look forward to it. Thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and start our Q&A portion. You guys will need to share. Is that all right? Yeah. You okay with that? Sharon is Karen. This is. All right, so quick reminder for those that are using the Slido. Many of you are putting your questions in, which is phenomenal. But in order for your questions to really show up with each presenter, if you slide to the next portion where you see the presenter's name, that'll be a great place to capture many of those questions. We are still receiving them, and I will be able to share some of them here as we start our Q&A portion. But I just wanted to, again, remind you in terms of how we're using this. So we'll start with our first question. And again, we're going to use the next 15 minutes or so. How in the past have you demonstrated and maintained commitments to community benefits?
It's a great question. I think we've probably done about 25 public-private partnerships over my career. Every single one of those cities is a reference. Recently, for example, we just broke ground in Boston on a high-rise hotel on the Seaport District there, and we committed to X% of the jobs had to be local, X% of the jobs had to be minority, X% of the jobs had to be female, et cetera. And at the end of the day, we're an open book, and we like creating win-win solutions. And you have to look at it project specifically and understand what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve, and then together come up with solutions to achieve them.
Yeah, I would just add that as a company, and the senior leadership here has been involved, as Chad said, with numerous community benefits agreements. For the most part, where we've been involved, they don't call them that, but they're often called public-private partnerships or other kinds of agreements where we're agreeing to very specific metrics on sustainability, affordability, open space, workforce. And the way to do it right is to work with the community and achieve a shared vision and have very specific metrics that are built on the outcomes that you all want to see achieved.
So again, obviously tonight there's a mixed interest of a lot of things that our community wants to know of you and all of the presenters. For many of you, your questions initially have a lot to do with what do we want to see on the space, and although that's a totally appropriate question, that's something that actually has yet to be determined, and that will come over the coming season. Really tonight is to learn more about who these developers are, who are they, what moves them, what's, as you said in your presentation, kind of what's in the DNA of your company, and is there an alignment that makes sense for what we want to see as a city. And so keep that in mind as you're continuing to provide questions. Is what do you want to know of them? And obviously we'll get to the what, but right now it's learning who you are. Here's another question that gets at us understanding who you are and how you operate. How have you worked with diverse communities and integrated their input in past projects?
Sure. So one of the projects that we're very proud of is the redevelopment of the historic Denver Union Station. And what we did there, we started with community research, and we reached out, and what we heard from the community was we want local, we want the best of Colorado, We want a place to bring our friends and family to. We want a place to hang out. We don't want a lot of fast food. And through that, we created what's known as Denver's Living Room. And I'm proud to say that one of the big goals and big ideas that we had at Denver Union Station was that one of the ways we were going to measure success from the time you walked in the front door till the time you left, if we heard you say, wow, amazing, oh my gosh, or incredible 7 to 10 times, we knew we would have succeeded in that. And when you take the time to tour the whole historic Denver Union Station hotel, retail, restaurants, et cetera, you hear those words about 40 times. And a big result of that was listening to the community and then together coming up with a project that exceeded their expectations.
Great. Thank you. Next question. Being from out of town, how will you commit to and learn about our local priorities?
I'm really glad somebody asked that question. I think we tried to start that process already and demonstrate the answer to that question by the team that we put together. And I said in my remarks that we have a lot of experience and a lot of expertise, but only a little bit in Portland. And the way to make the project truly successful and to achieve, I think, what all of us collectively ultimately will want is by making sure it fits uniquely with Portland. And so we need you all, and we need the folks that we showed up on the screen there to support us. Again, it's a big tent, whether it's affordable housing or general contractors. There's a lot more room for a lot of people to support us. So we need support from this community to help us craft the project and the process to be a good fit here. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. Next question is, what is your experience with high-density development?
Okay. Our experience with high-density development includes developing, financing, leasing, legal, land use, all of the critical elements across the senior leadership of our teams. So our tallest project, our only project in Portland is 13 stories. I don't know if people think of that as high density, but given the quarter block site that it sits on, it certainly is. We have projects currently under design approaching 20 stories. And so every aspect of our organization, our team has extensive experience with high density.
Great. This question says, how have you integrated sustainable infrastructure in your projects?
We believe that it's really important that nature and the built environment can coexist together. I'm proud to say this weekend up at our master plan community in Loveland, Colorado, which is about a 3,500 acre master plan community, 20 years ago we created the High Plains Environmental Center to show how the natural environment and the built environment can coexist. And we took 275 acres inside of the 3,000 acres and basically created a nature habitat. And our goal was to measure the wildlife that was there and then show how, as the community's built out, not only does that wildlife stay, but it actually increases. We have a full-time environmental director on staff, and that's just one example. We have a large project in Broomfield, Colorado, that we just announced plans to locate the butterfly pavilion in, which is going to be the largest invertebrate research facility in the world. And it's in our DNA. We have a passion for really showing how nature and the built environment can coexist.
In the pollinator district. Yeah, and I would just add to that, I mean, so that's part of our track record. I would add to that there are a number of certification programs that we can evaluate and start to work on, whether they be Eco District or LEED ND or Green Dot, all these sort of different opportunities to help us achieve those really lofty goals for which in many cases there aren't great precedents of getting to that net positive for an urban infill project at this scale.
Okay. So this question says, the area near Union Station was at one time historically a predominant African American community. How have your projects acknowledged and incorporated historical communities of color?
Thanks for that question. Rooting the project, in terms of its design, its placemaking, its tenanting, and its history, is an essential element for pretty much every project we have done. Projects like one that's soon to be completed in Denver called Dairy Block is based on a site that was, of course, a dairy and had a really diverse workforce in its early days. In Colorado, honestly, there's a lack of diversity that doesn't always speak to individual projects, but we have worked with a few different organizations to try to remedy that. So the Denver Community, the Denver African Community Center has supported us and helped us find immigrant and refugee members of the community and people of color to work in our local hotels. We've been very supportive of the Urban Land Institute's program called the Real Estate Diversity Initiative, and one of our senior staff is a part of that. And we work with universities who are very committed to diversity in supporting our hiring practices.
Great. This next question asks, what project have you completed that is most indicative of what we can expect from your firm and from a design perspective? Kind of what's your default?
You know, I would say there's probably two projects. One is the historic redevelopment of Denver Union Station, which obviously we're very proud of. And I would say our newest project, Dairy Block, which just opened within the last year. And we're going to have Denver's first activated alley. And that was pretty cool. We took about a year and a half and traveled the world and studied some of the best alleys throughout the world. And it's going to be Denver's first activated alley, and it's actually a maker's alley. And we're going to have about 25 makers in the alley in the project that are going to be making and selling their products on site. And so we chose to keep it local, best of Colorado, and that will open here in about 90 days.
Yeah, and that project's LEED Gold, by the way.
Next question says, how has your work with the community incorporated transparent community engagement and oversight?
I think we've done a lot of public-private partnerships. I would think the most recent one would be the redevelopment of the historic Denver Union Station, and that's one where I often say the public sector needs to know when to be involved, and then also needs to know when to get out of the way and let things happen. And I mean that sincerely, because at Denver Union Station, there was a lot of people giving a lot of input about what that project should be, and then once it got teed up, the public sector really stepped aside, and then some great partners like Larimer Associates and Sage Hospitality and Mikuni and Preservationist Dana Crawford and the National Park Service, because it's a historic building, et cetera, all worked together with incredible design firms. We actually had 3 different design firms involved on the inside of that project, each doing their area of expertise. And what ended up being created was something that was really world-class. And it's a really good example of how lots of talented people working together can accomplish so much more than any of them can do on their own.
Yeah, and I would add on that project and a couple of others in Colorado that I can think of in particular, we have regular reporting requirements. I mean, communication is the short answer. Lots of communication, meeting with staff, regular meetings with council where we're reporting back on the achievement of our metrics. That's the way to make sure that you're following through on your commitments.
We have just maybe a few more moments left, so this could be our last, perhaps our second to last question. How have you ensured that project amenities benefit people of all incomes?
Do you want us to answer in terms of how will we do that here, or how have we done that in the past?
Probably the past would be the most helpful, but you can also spin that into what it would look like doing it here as well, if you like.
Well, the first part of it, sort of the obvious initial component, is affordability. So let me speak first to the residential, and then Chad already alluded, but I'll mention again the commercial side of it. Even on projects like the one in Broomfield that Chad referred to that do not have any affordable requirements, we have established goals that we've committed to the city, despite their lack of requests that we do so on delivering a certain amount of affordable housing. And then the next tier up, attainable housing. We want workforce housing. We want the people who are teaching the kids in our community, who are fighting the fires and keeping us safe, to have a place to live. And then on the commercial side of things, at Dairy Block, it may sound a little crazy in the development community. We are turning our backs on the Starbucks of the world, who bring extraordinary financial resources and credit, and focusing on small, local, in some cases, husband and wife, mom, pop type retailers, many of whom have never had a brick and mortar space. They don't have experience signing leases. They don't have a lot of credit. We're not going to get the same rent out of them, but we do it because we think it will make the entire project that much better, and it will provide returns in the long run. And again, we can do that because we own our projects and we manage our projects ourselves forever.
This is your final question. We appreciate the time you've taken in the Q&A. This is with respect to helping explain the kind of the formation of your team that you shared with us today. What was your process in selecting partners, and how did you evaluate their performance with communities of color and diversity?
Yeah, well, the simple answer to that is I and other members of our team for the last 3+ years came to town regularly and set up meetings. And every time I came, every time I had a meeting with somebody, I said, who's the best? Tell me who's the best in this category. Who's the best in this category? And specifically focusing on certified businesses. And if you look at the people who have supported us in this hall this evening and out in the community, you look at the firms who are part of our team, I think there's the answer to your question. Some of them we have experience with, others we just met through this process, but it's been over a number of years. And so I just kept asking people, well, this person says they can do this. So I asked 15 other people, are they really that good? Do people in the community think highly of them? Do they follow through on what they did? And we heard time and time again the answer, yes, and that's why we feel we have the best and brightest on our team.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for your questions. Please continue to have them come forward, either questions that you feel like could resonate with future presentations that we're here in just a few moments, and also as we continue through our 2 remaining developer presentations. You can use the Slido app. You can also get them to any of our volunteers with the orange lanyards. Also wanted to remind those that are watching via YouTube, there's also an opportunity and a way for you to also provide input. There's a link there that you should be able to see that allows you to also send us questions along the way. So we're going to conclude this moment here, so please don't move around too much, with a final polling question that we will go ahead and put up on the screen. Is that correct? Is that our next thing, is the polling question is going to be up on the screen? So is it ready? Oh, so it's already good to go. So if you are using Slido, you should see what the question is and go ahead and use the polling. The question here says, do you think Mikuni will engage, is that the question? I'm sorry, I'm a little slow. Do you think Mikuni will engage our communities as a partner, bringing an understanding of Portland's current and future landscape? So if you're using the Slido platform, that is the polling question that we are curious about. Again, make sure that when you're on there, get to that developer presentation. We'll take a few minutes to answer this question. Do you think Mikuni will engage our communities as a partner, bringing an understanding of Portland's current and future landscape? Simply select yes or no. We'll take a moment here to allow you to answer that question, and then we'll transition to our next presenter. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for your engagement on our first presentation. At this time, I would like to introduce to you and invite up team members from developing firm Related. So can you please give them a warm applause as they make their way up? Their 15 minutes to present. There you go, sir. Would you like this, or you want? That's good. I'm not going to need this. You want to need that? I'll just take this.
Thank you. It's just me. My name is Bill Whitty. I'm chairman and CEO of Related California, and I too want to thank Prosper Portland for inviting us here, and thank you all for coming. I have to tell you, it makes an enormous impression when you see this many people this engaged. There's a myth that developers, they don't want to talk to the community, but successful projects do. I'm going to talk to you a little bit as I introduce our team from a personal level first. I started my career in an urban homesteading program in North Philadelphia, in a city where 25,000 housing units were abandoned. You don't see that on the West Coast. That's an alien phenomenon. Moved through Washington, D.C., and ultimately came to San Francisco and became the director of the Mayor's Office of Housing and Economic Development under then-Mayor Dianne Feinstein. After that, I was a deputy mayor for Housing and Neighborhoods for her successor, Art Agnos, before starting Related of California 28 years ago. So the things about the Broadway Corridor, and in fact this process, that have really engaged me are things that, to borrow the phrase, in my DNA, first, public-private partnerships. And I'll talk to you a little bit about some of this work we've done in that area. Almost everything we do has been a public-private partnership. Second is affordable and mixed-income housing. We are one of the largest developers of affordable housing on the West Coast, and probably the largest developer of mixed-income housing. Lastly is placemaking. Our company, not just in California, but in other cities, has, I think, set very high standards for placemaking. And that's really about community and neighborhood, which is the way we look at this. We have, over this time, developed 10,000 units of affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. And we've probably won more design awards for that than any other developer in California. We also have developed or have under development 5,000 units of mixed income housing, where at least 20% of the units on site are low income. Something that it is just something that we do. Let me give you some examples, because these projects run the gamut from the redevelopment of 4 old, obsolete public housing sites that we've redeveloped into, I think, pretty vibrant, affordable/workforce mixed income communities in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Oakland, somewhat like the New Columbia development in Portland. We're working on a 50-acre site in San Francisco, where the average income of the resident is $12,000 a year. A very underserved community. To the 2 biggest mixed income high-rise developments, I think, on the West, 540 units and 487 units in California, 40 and 2 40-story towers, one under construction, one we've owned for 18 years, where 20% of the units are low income. So there's over 100 low income units within the building. The acquisition and rehabilitation of the largest HUD preservation project on the West Coast, El Rancho Verde in San Jose, which we completed 12 years ago, to 2 of the biggest mixed-use projects on the West Coast that are underway now, our Grand Avenue project in Los Angeles, somewhat similar to the Broadway Corridor, 3 publicly owned blocks in the Bunker Hill neighborhood of downtown LA, right across the street from the now iconic Frank Gehry designed Disney Concert Hall. We've completed the first phase, which is a 20-story mixed-income apartment tower with a small public park, and worked with the philanthropist Eli Broad to build a also iconic world-class museum of modern art that is free to the public. It is free to the public. What you're going to hear me say a lot tonight is that our developments, I think, ultimately are known as we hope the Broadway Corridor development would be known as much for their public spaces as for their private spaces. The second phase of Grand Avenue, which will start construction later this year, also designed by Frank Gehry, a $1 billion project with a mixture of hotel, residential, retail, food and beverage, and entertainment, but more significantly, has the most ambitious community benefits plan that the City of Los Angeles has ever implemented. We worked with a coalition in developing and are implementing that covers on-site affordable housing, local hiring, food opportunities at different price points, and significantly, something we already completed with the money paid for that site, a $50 million redevelopment of a 14-acre open space into a public park, now known as Grand Park, that stretches from LA's City Hall up the hill to the Music Center. The project paid for it, we designed it and built it. It's now programmed for the public, open to the public, and it shows you how a community can really use the public realm to create an interesting space. We spent the last year or so trying to understand the Portland market as we became aware of this opportunity, from the real estate side, from the community side. We like to think we know what we don't know. This isn't San Francisco or LA or New York, this is Portland. It demands a Portland response and a Portland plan. To that end, we have formed partnerships with two, I think, esteemed local developers in very different spaces. First, the Melvin Mark Company, one of, I think, the more respected local commercial real estate firms, has been in Portland for 70 years. Jim Mark and Peter Andrews are here tonight from Melvin Mark. And they've shown us, among other things, how they have curated retail space in their developments to local and particularly minority and women-owned firms. And also Central City Concern, an organization I had not been familiar with, even though we're very involved in affordable housing, who kind of blew me away, not so much because they have 2,000 affordable housing units in Portland built or under construction, but because of the non-bricks and mortar side of what they do. The fact that they were able to get an unprecedented $20 million grant for healthcare in their Broderick project. Never seen that before. The fact that they place on average, 750 formerly homeless people in Portland in employment into one of the 500 local firms that they are in touch with on a regular basis. So this is just the start. If selected and move forward in the planning process, we expect to significantly expand our team. And we have thoughts about the Broadway Corridor, but it's premature. We don't know yet what's going to be built. We don't know yet the best people to complement what the plan ultimately portends. Let me talk a little bit about how we would process-wise deal with this question of the process and the plan. On that Grand Avenue project, even though it was in downtown LA, and LA, of course, a huge place, we went and did 5 community meetings all over the city because of the magnitude of the project. We went first to listen, then to present a plan. Then we did it again when we planned the public park. First to listen, and then to present our response. And the project, I think, has been successful and much better for it. We would envision a similar process here, because while I'm delighted and kind of blown away to have the magnitude of this audience, we would expect to go out into the neighborhoods for meetings, smaller meetings like this, because people will often say things in a much smaller setting that they don't feel as comfortable saying in a setting as large as this. Sustainability has become an integral part of what we do as a company. With our We're backed by one of the strongest real estate companies in the country who's made a commitment nationally, the related companies, to sustainability, a vice president of sustainability, and cutting-edge efforts at doing things on a neighborhood scale that go beyond a green building. For example, building a cogeneration plant to serve an entire neighborhood, to have a stormwater treatment facility for an entire neighborhood. Also, to deal with sustainability, everything we do is at least LEED Silver or Gold, but we like to look at the individual situation and design a sustainability strategy that works and is most efficient for that situation. So we will also have a preferred vendors list for the apartments that we manage on behalf of our residents who are eco-conscious. We will go further on recycling than local ordinances require. And once again, we expect to work with all the community here to develop such a plan. There's more than just, as I said earlier, the bricks and mortar side of this business. And these are all things that we've worked on. We have partnerships with 26 different nonprofit housing organizations in our affordable housing portfolio, including 8 African American churches with whom we've developed affordable housing as co-general partners so that they have a long-term ownership in permanently affordable housing in the cities of San Diego, LA, Pomona, Richmond, San Francisco, and Oakland. And we're working in our second with each of these in Oakland and Sacramento. I didn't mention Sacramento. So we are used to community partnerships. We want to take the time to understand what would be the most effective ones and where we could make the most difference. And in Central City Concern, we have a partner who I think it's not even in their DNA, it's who they are. It's what they do. So we can address between their experience and ours a whole spectrum of affordability, from formerly homeless or currently homeless people to the people at 50 or even 60% of area median who live in a mixed income development, and provide at a community-wide level the services that make that neighborhood strong. On the commercial side, most of our retail developments include first source hiring provisions. And what these are things that are put into the leases of those tenants, which require them to consider, as they hire employees, people who come through local job training programs, and that is something that's written into the lease that then gets enforced. We've had a lot of success with that, and frankly, it helps them. It helps our tenants. It gets community buy-in, creates jobs for local people, and it makes the process a lot smoother. When we lease up our apartments, we work in multi-ethnic communities, often many ethnicities and races. We translate all the lease-up and management materials into different languages. We have people available who speak different languages to deal with these communities. I didn't mention, I promised him I would, but while we are new to Portland, our vice president and senior project manager, Joe Walsh, who would eventually come to run this, who is here tonight, grew up was born and raised here. So we do have some Portland roots. So I just want to emphasize again that we are here to learn and to listen, but it's also our job, if selected in this process, to bring our considerable financial, creative financing, and affordable housing and placemaking experience to bear on that process, to provide a menu of options for the city and the community to consider as we go through this process. What's financially feasible, what isn't? If there's 4 million square feet, if that isn't built, then there are no community benefits. So anyway, thank you. I look forward to your questions and to talking with you all further.
All right, so I think we have a good sense of how this goes. Let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. As a reminder, for some of you, I understand that Slido, it's doing okay, but there's still a few of us that are having some challenges with it. So again, the encouragement is there are cards that you can go ahead and write your questions to, and we have our volunteers with orange lanyards that can get that to you, and they'll collect those and bring them up to the front. So please don't be shy. We really want to make sure that we are hearing from as many of you as we possibly can. And also, any of the questions that did not get answered or were not even asked tonight that were captured, we are running that, and we will utilize that as a way to help inform future conversations moving forward. So your first question is this: can you discuss your willingness to enter into a legally binding community benefits agreement?
We entered into just such an agreement on our Grand Avenue project. And as I indicated previously, it includes 20% on-site affordable housing. There is some financial assistance for that, but it's on us to do it. A variety of local hiring programs, MBE and WBE hiring on construction, first source hiring. This particular project has a project labor agreement with the building trades. There are a couple of other things as well, but we've already done it. We've done it on a smaller scale on other projects as well.
Okay, thank you. Second question is, what kind of benefits do you have experiences with and anticipate in community benefits agreements? So you've already kind of touched on that, but if you want to continue to unpack more.
Well, I'll cover. I mean, they tend to cover a number of areas, and I want to emphasize again, it can be very specific to the community. So I don't want to suggest that you just stamp this thing out. But first and foremost is affordable housing. It's anticipated that there will be a fair amount of residential development here, and Prosper Portland has laid out a very specific goal for accomplishing that. I think we're very, very creative and experienced in how to do that, and so is certainly Central City Concern. Second is jobs. Jobs are on several levels. We look to hire during the construction process, during property management. We like to try to hire people from those communities in our property management organization, not just for this building, but so they become a full-time employee in the organization beyond just this site. Some of the community benefits are public space. I mentioned Grand Park. We're doing a number of developments now that have public paseos through what would otherwise be a private space. We won 2 years ago, a global award of excellence for the Urban Land Institute for our Santa Monica Ocean Avenue South project. 50% market rate condominiums, 50% low-income family rentals that we developed, own, and manage in partnership with a local nonprofit, 20,000 feet of retail space. There is a privately owned public paseo which is shared by the affordable housing and one of the condominium buildings. So that's certainly another example.
This question wants to understand kind of the composition of your company. How diverse is your company and with respects to leadership and the board, and also what are your hiring practices?
Well, we are a private company, so we don't have a board. We have across the company in California, we have a number of African American employees, including one who is a limited partner in many of our projects. We have an affirmative hiring program at every level. It's particularly important in our site hiring. And as I said, we work particularly in our public housing communities to hire residents from those developments to work in our company. And would expect to continue to do so at a very ambitious level here.
This question was posed to the previous team, and we want also to share with you. Again, the area near Union Station was historically a predominantly African-American community. How has your projects acknowledged and incorporated historical communities of color? I would say many of our developments have been in communities of color.
there's several ways. Since we have partnerships with local entities in those communities, including the African American churches, but not limited to them, they are a co-general partner. They have an equal say in design, and in particular, I think the way we do it is in the common areas and public spaces, the local hiring. We support local teams. We have partnerships with local school districts, because in these underserved communities, unfortunately, and I don't know how it is as much in Portland or Oregon, but California, there's serious budget problems facing particularly the educational institutions. So we try to form partnerships there. On the large-scale projects, we have, as the previous speaker said, all of them have public art, and all of them are local public artists. And we particularly reach out to those underserved communities who otherwise wouldn't have such a forum.
This question says, how have you ensured robust workforce diversity during construction and operations?
So much as we do when we're leasing up our buildings, we start early. You can't start when you're under construction. So we reach out, as we would here, through nonprofits, through churches, other neighborhood institutions, where there are, as there are in San Francisco, very robust local job training entities. We start working with them early. We explain the positions, we explain the skills required, et cetera. A lot of the projects are with unions, so we get people into apprenticeship programs. We provide translation services for often Hispanic-speaking residents who would like to participate. So there's no substitute for early outreach and working with entities in the community that we may not know. We wouldn't know on our own unless we did. And we've had a lot of success with that. Look, let me be clear. I say success. You can always do better. If everybody was having so much success, we wouldn't have the inequality problems that we have.
All right, thank you. This question asks, can you discuss your experiences working with organized labor, and specifically, what can you tell us about union labor at the Hudson Yards in New York City?
Well, I'm not directly involved myself in the Hudson Yards project. We work with the building trades all the time. There is a dispute at the Hudson, New York is different in that related or any developer negotiates with the Building Trades Council, not as we do in California with individual trades themselves. And there is a dispute at that level, not about union, non-union. I'm not, again, directly involved in that project, but that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you. This question poses the thought around, what is your experience in attracting a major employer?
Well, at the aforementioned Hudson Yards project, the largest private real estate project in the country right now, with a very robust, public space and affordable housing program, we've leased 5 million square feet of major employers to that to really create a new center on the west side of Manhattan. We, frankly, in part, decided to want to work with the Melvin Mark Company because of their local experience here in Portland to help us do just that, if at the end of the day there is a sense that that should be an important part of this project and could energize this project. I will say we have a very large mixed-use project in Silicon Valley. We have very close relations with a lot of the tech companies, Google, Facebook, and others, but I would hesitate to just say you wave a wand and you attract an employer. I think by creating a great place, which is what Hudson Yards did, you can make some real traction.
Okay, thank you. This question is how have you worked with community-based organizations to ensure inclusivity throughout the development and post-completion of the project?
I'm sorry, did you say Could you just repeat the first part?
Yeah. How have you worked with community-based organizations to ensure inclusivity throughout the development and post-completion?
Well, first of all, in most cases, a community-based organization is our partner. So they're in on the decision-making legally, politically, and every other way. In Santa Monica, even though the nonprofit, the local nonprofit, Community Corp of Santa Monica, didn't have an ownership interest in the condominiums, they sat with us at every design meeting. They had input into the plan to make sure it was sensitive. So I think the best way is to have a partner directly involved so that there is no question about community involvement and a community say.
This question continues to unpack I think the community is wanting to understand the ways in which you work within your partnerships locally. You mentioned ownership opportunities, and perhaps you can clarify this. You mentioned ownership opportunities through partnerships with the African American Church. Can you expound on that and give us references to research or to read further on? Any project names?
Yeah, well, I'm happy to provide by email, writing, or otherwise all the references. In many, not all, but in many of these cases, the church actually owned some land but wasn't equipped to be a developer. So we formed a partnership. In some cases, the partnership was paid them for the land. In some cases, they contributed the land. We formed a co-general partnership with them as the managing general partner. So they have long-term ownership and control of the property. So it remains a community-based asset long-term.
Thank you. We have just a few more moments, so this could be the second to last question for you. How have you helped minority businesses access capital to invest in businesses and real estate growth?
The chairman of the Related Companies in New York, Stephen Ross, has created a program to help minorities who have come through the office or him to do just that. I can't say today in California, we have an example where well, let me back up. I mentioned earlier that we have an African American in our company who started as a project manager, is now a limited partner. Started as just a project manager, just doing what project managers do, but he had an entrepreneurial bent. He's now a limited partner in 8 or 10 projects. Another happens to be an African American who was introduced to us by our New York company, isn't with the company full time, but he sort of said, well, I don't really want to be a project manager. He too is entrepreneurial. He has sourced opportunities for us and has gotten a limited partnership interest there. I think the interesting question for Portland in that regard goes beyond things like that. It's someone who wants to start a business, someone who wants to open a retail opportunity. And there, I would echo what the previous sponsor said, where a lot of our developments, the retail space doesn't go to the highest bidder. It goes to the most locally appropriate user who we may help by not requiring the usual financial requirements that are required of credit tenants or others. Because frankly, it's not just a do-gooder thing, it's good in the community, and frankly, the residents of the neighborhood and the building tend to like that kind of user.
Excellent. This will be our last question. How have you made explicit commitments to transit infrastructure and improvements in providing access to your residents and tenants?
In a number of our projects, we have provided transit passes. Now, I should first say that the city has to have a transit system to have a pass for. Portland does have some. I mean, San Francisco with BART and its municipal railway is a little stronger. Los Angeles is, shall we say, a little bit behind. So we will often offer transit passes, particularly to our affordable residents, to encourage use without imposing a financial burden. An interesting test case will come. We are under construction right now in San Francisco on a 55-story tower. It's 115 condominiums above 350 mixed-income rentals next to 100% affordable units with 12,000 feet of retail and a block from the city's new or under construction Trans-Bay Center, which is supposed to become the sort of, for lack of a better, the Grand Central Station of San Francisco. That will be, for us, the real test case of how best to do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time. All right, community members, we want to, again, as we did with the first presenter, provide a moment of pause for you to answer a final polling question. And I did want to, again, remind you, you can use Slido to do that. Just make sure that you are on the related, on their deck to answer the questions so that it calculates, in particular for this presentation. And for those that are choosing not to use Slido, again, no shame. There are also these green public meeting inputs that have the same polling questions that are being made available to you tonight. You can also take those, fill those out, and at the conclusion of the evening, you can please turn them in to our volunteers so that your voices are heard in that way as well. So let's take the next minute with our polling question, and then we will hear our third and final presenter. Thank you. All right, everyone. We're going to go ahead and pull your attention back to the front. And we want to make room for last but not least, our final presenter tonight to give us a sense of who they are, and how they operate, and what they would bring to our city to help develop this property. So please, if you can at this time, welcome up team members from developing firm Continuum. Please give them a warm welcome as they make their way up. Thank you. This clicker if you need one. And if you want to use this, you can. If you want to go, I think I use that. Okay, great. Yep.
Hello. Thank you all for hanging in there with us. I think there's still plenty of food, so if you're running out of nourishment, I would encourage you to take advantage of that. I'm Mark Falcone. I'm the CEO and founder of Continuum Partners, your final presentation this evening. I would like to just start by actually acknowledging and thanking Prosper Portland for running a really professional and incredibly respectful process. We do participate in these kinds of solicitations here and there, and they can absorb an incredible amount of time. And I really want to thank Prosper Portland for managing this process as professionally as they have, and again, being extremely respectful of our team's time and resources. We are thrilled to be here. Portland, for those of us who have been interested in human settlement issues, has really been a beacon that has really, frankly, shined the light for a lot of us throughout the rest of the country in terms of really developing a belief that civic ambition can, in fact, be realized. I really want to thank you, all of you, for over the years defending and pushing back on those forces that told you that your aspirations were not realistic, that your aspirations were not economical and not anchored in reality. You just pushed back and you kept asking for more out of your community, and candidly, you got it. And we're here today in large measure due to the kind of broad leadership you as a community have provided over the years. I've got to just make sure I know how to use this item here. So, boom. All right, I got that out of the way. I want to just talk to you a little bit about our company. Frank Cannon, who's going to join me in this presentation this evening, and I will share with you some interesting stories and specifics about some of the projects that we've been involved in, which will hopefully tell you a little bit about who we are and why we would be interested in something like this. Continuum was formed around a very specific mission and a set of core values. I had, after 10 years of being in the real estate when I first got out of school, I looked around at the kinds of projects that I was involved in, and I just kind of made the personal decision that I could just no longer be an accomplice to a pattern of growth and development that I knew was inherently unsustainable from both an ecological standpoint and from a broader community serving standpoint. And so in 1997, I set out to start my own company. I landed in Denver, Colorado, frankly not really knowing anyone. And I got there with a belief that I could actually build a company from the ground up that could, in fact, think about a much broader set of objectives and goals when it set about to build a project. We think of ourselves as human ecologists. We are in the business of building and shaping the human habitat. The Homo sapien is at the center of what we do. We literally care deeply about how high functioning and performing the communities that we build our projects within are. We started our company in the mid-90s at a moment when the center cities of America were in a brutal trough. Most cities in America were facing terrific problems with crack epidemics. I mean, crime rates were escalating. Our cities, our center cities, were in the bottom end of about a 40-year trough. Portland, frankly, being a real bright light in the midst of that. Not that you didn't have those same kinds of neighborhood issues in certain areas. Regional shopping malls and suburban office parks were the gold standard for institutional investors. And we formed our company with the hope that a more intentional effort could actually reverse that trend. It's remarkable to think that in a very short period of time, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary, that we almost face the exact opposite set of problems and issues throughout our cities today. I mentioned that we organized our company around a very strong set of guiding principles, and I'm extremely proud to say that over 20 years, we've been able to stand by every single one of them. One of those, our first guiding principle was the environment. We work to minimize the ecological costs of every single project that we do. Community design and public realm was our second principle. And we seek to broaden access in every single project that we do by shaping meaningful and consequential, and I say consequential, public spaces. Equity. No habitat is sustainable unless it serves a diverse and varied set of communities. Monocultures simply don't work. They tend to extinction, actually. Integrity stands behind everything that we do because a community's trust is literally our only currency. Capital is a commodity. That's easy to acquire. A community's trust is not. And it is the thing that we treasure, and it is the thing that we defend at all costs. And lastly, We know that the improvements that we are making are consuming an incredible amount of natural resources, and so we want to be sure that we are creating assets that will be of enduring value, that will serve those resources and the communities that we're in for years. Now, I'm proud to say that while we address each one of these values in every project that we do, the hurdles and challenges are constantly there. The tensions are constantly things that we have to wrestle with. And that's the fun part for us. The fun part for us is engaging in that dialogue and engaging in that puzzle solving and finding ways to realize projects that address those issues but meet all of the other constraints and demands that are placed on them. So one example I love is this is the first building that we built. It was in Denver, Colorado, and we completed this building in 1999. We sold it in 2005. In 2015, the company that currently owns it decided they wanted to get the building LEEDs rated, because in 1999 or 98 when we started it, the LEED certification process didn't even exist. With a minimal investment, they were able to get this building to a gold LEED standard. And again, it was a building that we didn't design to a specific certification. It was simply the way we approached the building to start with. Next project I just want to briefly focus on is a project that we call Belmar. Belmar was the redevelopment of a shopping mall in the western suburbs of Colorado. You can see in the upper left-hand picture what that mall was like the day it opened. Remarkably successful, but it was a monoculture. And by 1995, it had lost all of its vitality and was frankly sucking the life out of this city of 160,000 people. The city of Lakewood approached us about trying to come up with a way to convert that to a dynamic city center that could serve all varieties of activities for that city over the next 50 to hopefully 100 years. I'm thrilled to say that this has been one of the most successful projects that we were involved in and probably did a great deal to establish our reputation and trust within the entire region. The project's been acknowledged for a lot of the significant impacts it made on reconnecting the fabric. You can see here, we like to think that we healed the neighborhood with this project. We did all kinds of very ambitious things with sustainability on this project. And it wasn't just something that we did behind the scene. We tried to engage the community in it. Even our Christmas decorations were made out of recycled materials. We partnered with organizations like the National Renewable Energy Lab, which was based in Lakewood, to actually come up with some of the strategies. And the last thing I want to focus on before I turn it over to Frank, who actually really gets stuff done for our group, is to talk about a particularly special project for me and some of the rest of us at Continuum. This is a project, if you look on the upper right-hand slide, it's a museum of contemporary art. To the right of the project are luxury townhomes, and then just behind that is an affordable housing project. In 2004, we bought this piece of land with a specific purpose of giving it to the Museum of Contemporary Art so that they could open a new museum and expand their operations. They were living in a little fish market on a month-to-month lease. Today, this institution serves our community and the neighborhood that it's in a way that we could have never imagined. In fact, on Friday night, Portugal the Man actually played in one of the galleries there. And I'm going to admit that I didn't know who Portugal the Man was on Thursday, but it was a really good show, and I understand that they are one of Portland's favorite sons, so that was kind of fun. I'm going to have Frank Cannon come up and actually walk you through a few more specifics of our projects.
Excellent. Good evening. Thank you, Mark. We are thrilled to be here. I joined Continuum in 2005, so nearly 13 years ago. Continuum was a key partner and client of ours, and realized very quickly that the values of Continuum and my personal values were very closely aligned, and I can tell you 13 years later, it's the best decision that I've ever made. I was hired in part to pursue the opportunity to be the master developer of a 40-acre neighborhood surrounding Denver Union Station and to deliver all of the transportation infrastructure and 10 acres of new public space at Denver Union Station. Very similar to the Broadway Corridor. This is a 40-acre neighborhood versus the 30-plus acres of the Broadway Corridor. Kind of the island in the middle, very much like the post office site is the island. And what we were able to do was to deliver a program that allowed the reconnection of the community, new infill development, again, 10 acres of public space, and did that with a 96-member steering committee that we led the community process on every single day. I will tell you, I'm very grateful you only have 42 members on your steering committee because 96 was a bit unwieldy, but we were able to do this. We went through a very similar process to what we're going through here. We had big community presentations. There were 12 submittals. I'm also proud to say that we beat our now President Trump, who was competing for this project at that time in 2005. But some of the pieces that are not told very often about this story, because it has been told a lot in how successful the neighborhood has become, we spent $86 million in small business and disadvantaged business contracting on that project. We exceeded the goals that were set forth by more than 8 percentage points. A story that's never told on this project is a partnership that we personally formed with another local firm in Denver that was a construction management firm that came out of the predominantly African-American, historically African-American community called Five Points, just north of downtown Denver. They were a construction management firm and really wanting to become and grow into a full-service real estate development firm. So we formed a mentor-protege relationship with them and brought them into the fold of the project. We still have that relationship with them today, and they've continued to work on projects with us, at least individuals there. In fact, one of those key individuals, after leaving civil technology, formed their own real estate development and construction management firm that we still partner with today. He's working with me on the next project I'm going to show you here, which is a 26-acre medical campus redevelopment. You can see the scale of the neighborhood we created here with Union Station. And this is where we started with parking lots surrounding the building, and we now have very vibrant, lively public space, plaza being constructed, and then ultimately the next images here that show you very quickly the neighborhood as it's been programmed and kind of surviving and thriving today. So I'll flip from there to University of Colorado. This again is a 26-acre campus that was owned by the University of Colorado, operated as a medical research facility. They closed and relocated and left the site abandoned. The university worked for nearly 8 years with 3 different developers trying to get the project off the ground and redeveloped. The community over that period of time went from being very supportive and excited about the redevelopment to protest and opposition, as you can see from the no Walmart signs in the bottom center photo there. We got involved in 2015. We were selected as the master developer. The very first thing we did was host a series of outreach meetings with the community and listened. It's the only time I've done a community meeting where we were introduced and we got a standing ovation and round of applause just from the introduction because they understood who we were, they knew of our integrity and our honesty and our communication with the community, and it was a tremendous success. My favorite outreach meeting of that entire process, and I know that we had some kids here earlier, I don't know if it's now gotten a little bit late for them, but we did an outreach effort just with the children in the community. And we built the project out of Rice Krispie treats. We built collages of the community about what exactly the community wanted to see, and ended up with a tremendous project. We've contracted to date, 3 years later, $35 million worth of small business and disadvantaged business contracts that we've led on this project. We've spent nearly 32% of our funds that we've spent to date have been spent on that effort. You can see the project coming together here. The other piece we've done that's a key element is enhanced training opportunities. We've invested over $475,000 in enhanced training, where we've gone out and reached out to the community and built relationships in order to help train and provide the resources necessary for people to become gainfully employed and work on the project. We are also developing right now, we just completed with a partner 110 affordable housing units as the first piece of the program we built, and we're delivering the first of 5 new open spaces in this project, and all being done ahead of the first commercial building that we're opening, which doesn't open until next month. So with that, I will wrap it up, and we will take questions from the audience. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for staying engaged. We have a set of questions that we want to ask our final presenters. We'll start with one that we've actually asked for the prior presenter. Discuss your willingness to enter into a legally binding community benefits agreement.
Virtually all of the major public-private partnerships that we have been involved in, and there's three very significant ones that we showed you here, involve development agreements between a public partner agency and ourselves. And those development agreements involve all kinds of binding agreements regarding all aspects of the project. I'll let Frank actually talk about the one we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah, so on the short answer is we're fine entering into those. Just on the university project as an example, the 26-acre medical campus, our redevelopment agreement there has obligations for us for affordable housing. Again, the very first thing we built was 110 units of affordable housing on the site to make sure that we were immediately addressing the obligations in the agreement. It also has obligations for enhanced training. It has obligations for a first source program, very similar to what our colleagues were mentioning on stage previously. And it has small business and disadvantaged business opportunities as part of that. So we have prevailing wage, those sorts of elements that are all embedded in that agreement.
Thank you. This is also a question that was asked previously to the presenters. Again, this area near Union Station in particular was historically an African-American community. How have you addressed and integrated historic communities of color?
Yeah, I think the first piece, and I was mentioning the civil technology relationship, it's something that we're very proud of, and it's an ongoing relationship with the firm that we worked with and those individuals. In addition to the work that we did in the Union Station project, we also advised them and helped them in growing their operation in the Five Points neighborhood. So we provided advisory services to them as part of that mentor relationship to give them guidance on some of the real estate development activities they were exploring in their neighborhood. So it really helped to build that.
And I'll actually share another one that's a really interesting project and not something that we would typically screen for a presentation like this. But we bought an old abandoned drive-in movie theater in southern Colorado in a very, very rural community that had originally all been colonized through original Spanish land grants 300 years ago. It's actually the oldest settled part of Colorado. And in that community, there's a tremendous community of farm workers who have literally been there for, in some cases, multiple hundreds of years. And it's a very depressed community, but it's a community that's very important to the heritage of Colorado. And so we are working with the local communities down there. And what's also kind of interesting is the project was actually introduced to us by an artist from Mexico who found it and asked us to come and look at it and see if we'd be interested in collaborating with him on a project there. So we've been able to find ways to interact with all varieties of communities and virtually almost any kind of project that we look at.
Thank you. The question posed here is, how have you incorporated standards for biking, walking, and transit that go above and beyond existing standards?
Well, I think the short answer is, as the master developer at Denver Union Station, we took a $1 billion infrastructure program and delivered it for under $500 million with 8 new tracks of commuter rail, 3 tracks for light rail, a 22-bay regional bus facility, 10 acres of public space. We created a transportation demand management plan for the entire neighborhood. And we are the founders of a not-for-profit that is called the Bike Hub, where we are working to raise funds and have designed a commuter bicycle facility that would have not only bike storage, but changing rooms, shower facilities, that we've been raising funds now for a couple of years to build in the Union Station neighborhood, because it was a component of the project that never got funded with the larger infrastructure program. It kind of got left behind, and we felt it was important, and we've been working on that diligently since.
Thank you. This question says, what experience do you have in transparent community oversight and enforcement?
Yeah, that really does start with just kind of open dialogue. And in all of the meetings that we've held on various projects, whether it was working with the 96 members of the Citizen Advisory Committee on Union Station, to the what we call the Colorado Boulevard Healthcare District Board, which is comprised of the surrounding neighborhoods around our medical campus redevelopment. We hold regular meetings and open to communication. In fact, at our 9th Colorado project, many of the neighborhood associations use our office space on site for their community meetings. We host them there, and it just gives everybody a chance to come in and see what's going on and talk to us on a regular basis. We've been very open and willing to have community dialogue. I can't count the number of times I've been in people's living rooms having a cup of coffee to hear what their concerns are at any point in time on a project. So it's something we're very open and willing to do.
And we even, on that conversion of that mall project that we referenced earlier as well, believe it or not, that mall was well loved in that community. That mall was dying. It had become the source of the biggest crime reports in the city, and yet there were people in the community that did not want to let go of it. And so the city assembled a 30-member advisory team, and we met with them once a month for a year as we began to reimagine how we could convert that project into something else. And we actually wrote the zoning for that property with that community group.
Thank you. This question is, what job quality standards have you applied to ensure living wage jobs for workers within your projects?
Yeah, we have, with our first source hiring efforts, with Denver Union Station, we had living wage requirements that we negotiated with the community groups, where we made commitments on office buildings of certain size would use a certain labor pool. We used the first source hiring program on Union Station activities. We've got a hotel and parking operation and restaurants there that utilize the first source program. And at our 9th Colorado project, we do as well. We embed those requirements in all of our leases. And we not only do that on the developer side, but through property management and ongoing asset management, we make sure that our tenants are reaching out to the community and doing the same.
Okay. Thank you. This question posed by our community is, how have you made sure that amenities from your projects benefit people of all income levels?
The public spaces themselves are an important place to start, and it's important that we design these public spaces in ways that the signal's strong to everyone that they're welcome. The 10 acres of public spaces that have been established around the Union Station neighborhood that that you saw some images of, I don't know where these people were before we created those spaces. It's remarkable to see how the community has just taken on to these spaces. They were former parking lots that were just abandoned. There was nobody around, and suddenly there are literally hundreds and thousands of people in those spaces of all walks of life, and we're thrilled about that. The project that I showed you at the end, that Museum of Contemporary Art, we also designed. We were very actively involved in the entire completion of that project and that whole facility, and we worked with a remarkable architect by the name of David Adjay, who actually grew up in a neighborhood that where he knew the people that he was growing up with did not feel welcome in the cultural institutions that were available in London. And that building is designed without a door to reduce and eliminate any threshold resistance to anybody who will come in. And in that organization, which we're still very involved with and support significantly, we don't charge for teenagers. We make it clear that communities of all parts of our region are welcome, and it's been a tremendous success.
Thank you. This question is posed. It says, what have you done to support home ownership opportunities in addition to rental that has helped build middle-class wealth?
This is why we're here. It is literally the single greatest challenge threatening all of the communities that we all love and participate in. And frankly, there are real challenges to sorting through these things. And we have been working, we spent the last year and a half doing research with the National Foundation about different strategies and different methodologies to create accessible ownership and accessible and attainable housing on a permanent basis. And we've been deeply involved in this. We have been exploring and raising questions with members of the federal government, at the IRS, And frankly, part of what we are interested in doing and being here is looking for a partner, a think partner, to really help make a meaningful push in this, on this very difficult and challenging, problem that we are all facing. This project, I mean, honestly, what gets accomplished here on your project isn't just about Portland. The entire country needs a pathway to starting to sort some of this stuff out.
Thank you. This question says, how has your development firm ensured employment equity for persons with disabilities?
I don't know that we have actually, I don't think we actually have any current employees with active disabilities, but we certainly seek as much diversity of input in the things that we do. We work extremely closely with the disability communities in all of our projects. On the Denver Union Station project, we spent months sorting out, walkways and all varieties of conveyance systems to ensure that that our community, our disability communities, had phenomenal access to this remarkable new transit hub.
This question here says, Portland's recent growth has often been seen as negatively impacting communities of color. How do you imagine a new paradigm of development that is supportive of these communities?
I think you're using an interesting term there with paradigm, and I think you have to have a paradigm shift in how you think about what this opportunity with the Broadway Corridor can provide. It starts from kind of open and honest dialogue with the community about the goals and objectives. Candidly, when I read the vision plan and the documents that have been pulled together, they're tremendously aspirational, and I commend you for that. But there will be times where some of those aspirational goals will be in conflict with one another, and we'll have to make challenging decisions together on how to move forward and how to prioritize those. It's something that through the project, and I think, Mark, you should talk a little bit about the airport activities, but it's something that we strive to do in all of our projects.
We own a series of retail kiosks at the Denver airport. We actually have 40 individual kiosks, and the whole program was really conceived of as an incubator and a mechanism to create opportunities for disadvantaged business owners to actually create new opportunity. It's been tremendously successful. We've actually been operating it for 7 years now, and in fact, today, I think I signed a renewal of that lease. And our original target was 25% participation by disadvantaged businesses, and we've averaged 40% through the entire 7-year period, and it's really been remarkable. I mean, we've helped to launch some phenomenal businesses. Another really interesting thing we're involved in right now is we as a company support an organization called the Biennial of the Americas, which is really about trying to facilitate and foster more cultural understanding between Latin America and the United States. We actually have a group now from Brazil officing in our space in Denver, which is in the business of creating entrepreneurial capital available for people with exciting social enterprise ideas. I mean, they do everything from funding a small delivery service in a favela in Sao Paulo to helping somebody who's trying to create a park out of a small dump. And they just opened an office in Colorado, and they want to expand that programming in the United States now.
So this is going to be our last question for you gentlemen. This site is, not only was it adjacent to a historically African American community by the Union Station, but the site that we are referencing this evening is also adjacent to Portland's Chinatown. How have you worked with and incorporated input from diverse communities?
Yeah, all of our projects.
Switch room.
Thank you. With all of our projects, it's that open communication and dialogue. On the Union Station project with 96 members, those representatives spanned the entire Denver metro area from all communities in the Denver area, and really all, not just ethnic communities, but everything from labor to social and environmental justice participation in all of those. And it's something that through that dialogue and that communication, we've tried to design projects and develop projects that are very inclusive.
Excellent. One last final thought?
Yeah, and again, I connect ourselves to some of these cultural enterprises that we've been involved with because we do support them in a very integrated way with what we're doing. And actually right now in that museum that I showed the picture of at the end, there's a video piece by a filmmaker out of LA called Arthur Jaffa. And the video piece is called Love is the Message is Death. And it's very interesting because when the African American community in Denver caught wind of the fact that that piece was coming to that institution, they actually raised concerns about whether we were the appropriate venue to actually present that work. And frankly, it led to a phenomenal dialogue between our museum board and the members of that community, and it resulted in a significant new partnership that has emerged out of it. So frankly, part of it is you just have to be willing to engage in these conversations.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Can we please give them a warm applause? Appreciate your time. Again, as we've done with the first two presenters, we'll ask you to take a moment now, either via the Slido platform, or also you can use your green public meeting input to address the final questions, and then we will close with one final activity as a community before we call it done for the evening. Thank you for your engagement. As our final step, we're actually going to allow all of our presenters to come up and have just a closing remarks. So please, if you have the moment, I think the next 7 minutes will be just as meaningful as the past hour and some change that we've been together. So if I can have all of the presenters come back up one more time to the stage, we'll give each of them just a few moments to have any closing remarks, a variety of questions that were posed. There might be some things that are top of mind that they have forgotten to mention that they feel like are really relevant, and we want to give them the opportunity to do so. So please come on up now, gentlemen. Thank you. And as we do this closing remarks, I cannot say enough. Be brief and amazing. And we're going to start in reverse order. We're going to start with the last presenter. So if I can have you come on up from Continuum. And again, 2 minutes, open-ended, any closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, I'll just leave you tonight with our Chief Operating Officer, Donna Blair, when she started looking through the RFQ documentation, she came into my office all excited, and she said, "We have to pursue this. Their values are exactly our values. Our core values reflect what they actually outlined as the hope and aspiration for this project." And we really did feel that way. We're a relatively small company. We're 35 to 40 people. We punch above our weight in terms of the scale of the projects that we do, but we're forced to pick our projects fairly carefully because we don't have unlimited human capital to put onto these projects. And our team and our entire group that's here today believe that this is the kind of project that we could really make an impact on and actually make a difference in. And we look forward to the opportunity to work with you and try to do that.
Thank you, sir.
When we first started thinking about this project and talked to the Melvin Mark Company and then Central City Concern, we had to convince them that we shared the values that are embedded in this program, in this process. We had to convince Jim, Mark, that we bought into his 12-year history of promoting carless transit and streetcars here. And we had to convince Stephanie and Frida and their team at Central City Concern that we understood what they were about, the whole spectrum of affordability. And finally, I think we understand that we, if selected, have to earn your trust. It's not about, yes, we think we've done some relevant good things, but it's a process and it won't happen overnight. And it will happen in meetings like this, but it will happen also in neighborhoods and living rooms and smaller meetings. We really hope to bring, would love the opportunity to work with you, to bring our creativity, to bring our experience with partnerships with all people from all communities, from underserved communities throughout the city, and to be creative in doing it, which has been kind of our byword. So I really appreciate the opportunity. Hope we'll have some more opportunity. I will say that we also beat out Donald Trump for our Time Warner Center project in New York.
Thank you, sir. Last but not least, Mikuni, your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I just want to say, you know, we're really excited, and all three development firms are very qualified. You're not going to go wrong, whichever one you pick. I have a lot of respect for these gentlemen over here and the projects that they've created as well. We didn't talk a lot about the background of Mikuni, but I should mention that we have about $2.5 billion of assets under management. We're a firm of about 150 people. We've got about 1 million square feet of residential under construction today and about 1.5 million square feet of commercial under construction today. And what we're most passionate about at Mikuni is really creating community and creating place. And I would invite members of the selection committee to reach out to any community that we've done business with in our last 27 years. And every single one of them, from Mayor Michael Hancock in Denver to City of Garden Grove, Fort Collins, Loveland, Broomfield, et cetera, every single one of them is a reference. We've become part of the community, and I will personally be involved in this project, as well as several other people from our team. And things like community benefit agreements and things like that are something that we're very used to, and look forward to partnering with you if given this opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I cannot thank you for your earnestness, your engagement, and as a final step for us to conclude this evening, we'll ask that you would, we have one final polling question. If you have the green sheet, it's right on the back. It's just additional information to help us get a sense of who was in our audience, who was also watching via YouTube, to help us get a sense of how much we did here, and perhaps where we might still need to make further inroads to really say we've heard from the community in the way we feel like is most appropriate for this to be a project that reflects community-led visioning. With that being said, thank you so much. Yes. So once you have filled out the green page, if you can make sure you get that into a hand and one of our volunteers, they're walking around with the orange lanyards, that would be wonderful. Again, thank you for your time, and thank you for your engagement. Stay tuned. This process has many more turns moving towards its final goal. Thank you.